is run down to Riley, speak on a panel, see some folks, and then come back. So yes, glad to be here.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here. This is going to be an amazing talk. What I'll be doing in the background is answering some comments in chat as you start dropping down some awesome bombs of information, might be dropping in some links. But other than that, I'm excited to hear your guys' talk. Thanks for taking some time. I, too, am out of my normal area. I'm also traveling and actually in Little Rock, Arkansas. So I totally understand that we're on the travel rigs, but we're still making things happen. So that's awesome.
Perfect. Hey, if you could start off, go back to slide 2.
Yeah, let me go back. There we go.
All right, here we go. Guys,
awesome.
Perfect. All right. Glad to be here. I'm glad that you're spending some time with us today. This has been an amazing conference, and hats off to everybody that's involved because there has been a lot of work to get to this point. And I hope you guys are enjoying today's talks as both tracks are going. With that being said, let me talk about my talk. So this talk is one that's passionate to me, like a lot of the talks are. And this one goes both heavy on the administration side, but also on the developer side. So this is kind of the tale of two coins, and it's kind of a fun one to give. So with that being said, let's get started. So the introduction we've done. We're going to explore some trust paths. We're going to do some technical dissection of 2 Chrome extensions that accounted for over 100 billion credentials stolen. We're going to talk about Light LLM, which had 300 billion credentials stolen in like 1 to 2 days. And so we're actually going to do a deep dive. We're going to look at source code. We're going to talk about what happened, how they were missed by security programs, how were they able to proliferate out onto computers and run undetected. So we're going to talk about that too. So this is a fun talk. There's a lot of deep dives on both sides. So if I'm deep diving in the leadership side and you're like, well, I get there really fast for the other side and vice versa. With that being said, let's roll. Next, please. Okay, so areas that we're going to break down, and we're going to do a breakdown of common attack vectors responsible. We know these, but this is expanded with AI. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about practical framework to evaluate basically being able to your investments, because what's happening is when you have a program that is running really, really well, what happens? Well, you know, we haven't had any attacks and things are quiet. Why are we spending this kind of money? Maybe we can cut money. So we're going to go into that, talk about that as well. And then we're going to do a risk prioritization approach grounded. So we're going to look at a risk prioritization approach that will really help get you moving forward. With that being said, next. I always love having this slide in. And it's always great when I'm doing this in person because I get to see the faces and I also get to ask questions. So this is really kind of, unfortunately, not a back and forth like I'm used to. But with that being said, if you choose to not decide, you still made a choice. This is Rush, Neil Peart. And this is a song that I absolutely love because with anything, if you choose to not do anything, you've already made your choice. You've chosen to do nothing. And so that is huge. Next, please. So let's talk about why this matters. Next. All right. So let's take a look at major company breaches of visual references. So we look at in 2025, Azure Cloud, we had 650 million user accounts. American Airlines, 140 million. Genome, 12 million. We look at blockchain exchange. You look at how much in assets, it's just huge. And you look at the rest of the list and it's just, you're just like, whoa, wait a second here. All of this is happening. And the crazy point that I want to make today and I want to talk about today is the fact that a lot of the breaches that have happened recently after these breaches that we're going to talk about are because people aren't rotating keys. They're not changing passwords. And when you consider that you had 300 billion plus 100 billion credentials stolen in a very short time, that's on the dark web, and a lot of those aren't even on the dark web anymore. They're on, you can find them. And you just simply go into any script kiddie, any youngling, anybody that's playing with AI can go in there and say, hey, here's this list, go validate, see if they're still active. That's all they have to do. And it runs out and does it for them. And so when you start looking at that aspect, that changes everything, because now, you know, if you don't have multi-factor turned on, if you don't have passkeys turned on, all of a sudden your information's out there and you can be basically taken. Next, please. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a breakdown of common attack vectors first that are responsible for a big share of our recent breaches. So with that, next. We're going to focus in on these three areas: credential, session hijacking, supply chain compromise, because that is huge and that is happening massively as we speak. Phishing and social engineering. When you look at what had to happen in the old days for social engineering, and now you look at what's happening today, it's quite different. And so that's going to be kind of a fun conversation that we're going to have. But you look at the phishing, the malware, SQL injection, you know, man in the middle, insider threat, you see how all this will bubble up. Next, please. Okay, so let's start with credential theft. So you can look over on the chart on the right as I'm speaking. All right, so browser plugins. So today's conversation, we are going to deep dive into 2 Chrome extensions that essentially accounted for 100 billion credentials stolen over a couple of weeks. The light LLM was actually measured in days. And so we'll look at that. But you look at the browser plugins, and what we're going to see is with the browser plugins, we inherently trust those. When we go in, and I have slides for this, so I'm kind of jumping ahead, but when you download any kind of application, what do? You're going to scan it for viruses. You're going to scan it for malware. You're going to scan it for something just to make sure it's safe, right? But we're not doing that for open source. And so when you look at browser extensions and browser plugins, what are we doing there? We're not scanning those. We're not doing anything. And as a matter of fact, a little bit of a well, no, we'll get to that later. But anyway, browser plugins. We're downloading browsers plugins all the time. We're simply accepting those, both at home and as well as at the office. Email phishing. You guys know this email phishing. I mean, it's nothing new, but when you look at what AI has done for the phishers and the attackers and what they're able to do with AI, now we're no longer looking for misspelled words or words broken English. It's no longer very obvious. And when you look at Proofpoint and some of the other tools out there, we're modifying the links anyway. So asking your developers, asking your users, hey, look for weird links. They're already weird. So what are we doing there? So essentially, we've kind of broken the whole mechanism. So email phishing is something huge. And, you know, it's one of those things. Just be smart. If you get an email that's too good to be true and you know the person, send them a text. Pull out your phone, send a text. Say, did you send this to me? If it's somebody from work, this happens frequently. I get a lot of emails that say, hey, you know, you got a gift card, you got this, you got that. And I always go in and ask the person, did you send this to me? And, you know, most of the time, no. So that's how I get around the phishing. If it's something that I'm not sure about, I reach out to the person themselves. I do not click. I do not do anything. Typically, I just simply delete. Typo squatting. This is where you change the URL slightly. And so what happens is sometimes there are some words that are easy to misspell and, you know, receive. Is it IE, EI? I mean, little things like that go a long way. Supply chain compromise. Now, this is where we're having a lot of trouble. And when I was on the panel speaking last week, or actually this week in Raleigh, the big thing that I talked about is today the developers are the target. It's no longer, I'm going to attack the castle. I'm going to try to break through your firewall. I'm going to try to, no. Basically at this point, with all the keys out there, people are going into the supply chain acting as the developer because, you know what, they have the key. The key's been compromised. It's out there. They're able to log in. As the maintainer, put the malicious code out there, release it. What happens when people see that, oh, look, the maintainer made the changes? They assume it's safe. That assumption will bite you every time. And we're going to get deeper into this. DNS poisoning. This was something that happened frequently to my kids as they're growing up. They didn't inadvertently download something, run something, And all of a sudden, when they were trying to go to a URL, it was going to a DNS server that was malicious. And in some cases, it would actually go out there and send them to a malicious version of the site that looked right, but wasn't right and still acted right. And so DNS poisoning is huge. And apps installed from a trusted source. Can we now still trust the originators? Can we still trust when we look at, oh, well, this came from this company? Should we be able to trust it? We have to still do trust but verify. And when we look at what we do, and again, I'll talk about this later, but I'm going to hit it now just a little bit. Think about a cooling off period. If something has just been released, that's probably not a great idea to grab the latest and greatest. Let it sit for 7 to 14 days, then try it. Because if you grab it and it has been compromised, usually there's a short window of a couple hours, well, sometimes minutes, to hours to days before it's been identified as being malicious and stopped. And so if you're downloading immediately, and man, I love the latest and greatest, I am beyond bleeding edge, guess what? You are that target. Next, please. So when we look at all the supply chain compromises, right? Really, there's a lot of high impact breach involving third-party software, supply chain, vendor, access data, and the access vector. So when we look at the compromises happening, just as I said, people are going in now because of all the credentials that have not been rotated and simply going in and acting as if they are that person. And so, or that company. And so again, rotate those keys. I write all the time on LinkedIn, and I frequently talk about rotate those keys, rotate those keys. And right now, it's definitely a good thing. Put it on your to-do list. Come Monday when you walk into the office, rotate the work keys. I'd say do it this weekend, but I don't want to be the reason why you're working this weekend. So you've got that. You look at the trusted software distribution channel. So when you look at open source, again, when you download anything, you do a virus scanner or you run something, but we're not doing anything with open source. And the thought process behind that would be, well, if we download open source, well, then it's coming from a trusted source like GitHub or a vendor or someplace that I would assume would be trustworthy. And so you create an assumed trust. And you also think, well, guess what? We have the source code. They're not going to hide something in that source code. Absolutely, they will. They'll do it all the time. They'll obfuscate it in a way that you kind of most likely will skip it. And we'll see that with the Chrome extensions as we get into that. We talk about 2025, we doubled by 30%. Look at what we're going to do this year. The numbers aren't out yet because, hey, we're in 2026. But the fact that we doubled by 30%, I hate to say this, with the latest compromises and the things going on, I think it's going to be higher. I think it's going to be a lot higher. And then we take a look at the solar ones, the Chrome extensions, just to name a few, if you look at the supply chains and you look at how they've been compromised, they've all been compromised by different methods and methodologies. Next, please. So we look at the phishing and social engineering aspects of this, right? So we take a look at the initial installation of compromised software, the extensions, right? So we have to build trust. One of the things we're going to see in one of the Chrome extensions is where they put up a EULA. We're all used to seeing EULAs. We're going to go in, we're going to look at it and go, oh, look, EULA, scroll down, accept. We're going to get into that when we hit the Chrome extension. But you start thinking about some of the things like XEUtils, some of the things that have been out there. What's kind of happening in that arena is that the software's been out for a while. It becomes kind of a building block for Linux, for you guys, for developers, for anything, for you guys. And so it kind of builds that trust over time. Well, when we look at, hey, an update has recently been done, and that update has been done by the developer or by the company, we have that assumed trust. And we just need to be a zero trust environment these days, trust but verify, give it a resting point, let it sit for 7 to 14 days, then try it. Make sure you're always pinning your versions. If you pin the versions and you know the version is good, you're in good shape. And you look at open source here because, of the trust aspect, XEUtils, Light LLM, Notepad++. How many people are running Notepad++? How many people have that set to auto update? That's kind of a weird problem, because in the for the longest time, auto update is your friend and it keeps you fresh. Auto update's your friend. And then Notepad++, somebody makes a malicious version, gets it out onto the actual distribution server. You take the latest update, and that latest update now redirects you to a malicious server and does things behind the scenes. And then guess what? You find out later, and the auto update now points to them and not to the official site. And this all happens without your knowledge. You're not looking at the logs on your computer every day going, oh, look, this updated. I should probably go take a look. You're not doing that. If you have auto update, you're just assuming that it's right and you're moving on. Next, please. All right, so let's talk about a practical framework for evaluating. So this is where we do a little bit of a deep dive into the administration side. Developers, guys who aren't in this area, just stick with me for a little bit. We will deep dive, but we're going to pull up and we'll have a little fun here in a minute. Next. Security teams are asked to do more with less every year. Think about it. Less people, less resources. AI is going to take care of our resource gap, so don't worry about it, right? But most of us still can't answer the basic question when our CFO asks, what did we actually get for our $2 million that we just spent? You could also ask the same thing about AI. We just had a $150,000 bill. What did we get? Same problem. It's hard to really kind of put a value to it. But we'll talk about that. Next, please. So most organizations, they buy security tools the same way they buy insurance, out of fear. Do not worry. Do not be fearful. The old tactic of selling anything, security, cars. Right now, I have a water heater that is 15 years old. I have two. One failed. Now I'm looking at it, and what do? Do I go ahead and proactively replace the second one, or do I let it fail? I have the ability to turn off each one distinctly, so I'm not really being impacted. But at this moment, I know that I'm on a ticking time, because at some point, if that one failed, that other one will probably fail sometime soon. So I have to think about it. So am I going to buy out of fear, or am I going to buy out of planned? And that's really what you need to do, is look, analysis, plan, decide what you need to do. A breach will happen somewhere in the news. You're going to see it. A vendor will call. A box gets checked. The results is a portfolio overlapping tools. You have to be very cautious. There are some amazing companies out there doing amazing things. And I would suggest, if you have some time, take a look, see what some of the companies out there that are doing unified platforms are doing. And there's some really cool stuff out there. The days of always buying top of the shelf for every aspect of your security program are gone. The budgets, they'll never be there for that. Next, please. So let's talk about a practical framework, right? So we need to ask better questions. What type of threat does this address, and how likely or impactful will that threat be to us? A lot of programs, a lot of teams are looking at, oh, it's critical, it should be fixed. Oh, it's high, it should be fixed. There are a lot of companies that have been compromised on mediums. I'm just going to say that out loud. And some even bigger players in the market have been affected by mediums. I can't share, I know, but I'm just telling you, it's out there. What does the mitigation actually cost? When you look at, if you've been compromised, I'm just going to tell you now, if you've ever been compromised, you need to go get a third party to come in, evaluate how they broke in and how to stop that, protect that, and then look at other things. And the reason why I talk about bringing in third parties is because recently there have been some big companies out there that have been breached. And when they were breached and all their information has been encrypted, they were down. And so they were able to go back to the backups, restore everything, and literally in 2 days recompromise and completely back offline. And the reason why is because, yes, you restored yourself to a good working environment, but you never solved how they got in and prevented it. And that is the key. What's the measurable reduction in risk? So if I do something, what kind of reduction in risk am I looking at? And what else could we do with that same dollar? So if you have a lot of overlapping tools, ask the question, what is the quality of the results from a unified system? Are they on par? Or looking at the tools, does this make sense to have overlapping tools? When I was still doing software development, I really tried to look at multiple tools on things just to make sure that from two different versions, two different companies, two different approaches, I'm safe, because that was key for what I was doing. That may be important to you, and I absolutely get that. But you also might be a smaller company that has an application that does not need that kind of review. There's a lot of things, mitigation steps that you can put into place that will help mitigate a lot of the basics. Web application firewalls are a good example of that. All right, next. So really, let's acknowledge the hard part, right? Because we're really pushing the big, heavy ball uphill. So doing the framework correctly does require you to put a lot of numbers together. If you don't have a number to start with, in development, we always called it a WAG, wild ass guess. Go out there, try to get a number there, then you can hone that number in. Is it too low? Is it too high? Usually when you do a WAG, it's usually a little higher because you have no idea, but you're at least getting something on paper to work with. Look at the probability of an incident. Let's look at the business impact. Our applications, even the little guy applications that you guys run, the little helper applications could easily be the way into the bigger applications. So do not discount those because that is important. And look at the value of your data, right? Ask the question, if this data has been stolen, if this data is out there, if this data contains your family information, would you want that out there? And protect it like it's your family's data. And so you got to look at the value of the data. The point isn't really about the precision. It's really about getting something together, start reasoning, create a rough estimate, and really just start truly getting some valuation tied to it. Next, please. So really the real payoff of your framework isn't really a better spreadsheet, because if you're just doing a spreadsheet, there's no value in there. The hackers are not going to care what you guys are doing for your tabletop exercises and your silos. You really have to bring it bigger, right? It's the different conversations with leadership, understanding what their needs are, understanding what your needs are, finding a way to come to the middle. I'm not sharing anything that hasn't already been known. I'm just really kind of just saying, hey, remember, everybody works together. Otherwise, nobody works together. And when security can say, hey, guess what? We prioritize X over Y because it delivers 3 times the risk reduction per dollar given over the threat profile, you can now move from being a cost center to being strategic function. And when you do that, and when you bring those kind of data points to the table, that's when you get the money. It's when you're making sure that you can put valuation to it that truly makes sense. Next, please. So really at this point now, you're kind of going, all right, developers, you're asking this question, why does this matter to me? What's in it for me? So let's kind of talk about what is this, what's in it for you. So this conversation, we've kind of been a little bit deeper on the administration side. Let's kind of flip that over now towards the developers. Next. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a risk prioritization approach. Did you hit next? Can you guys hear me? There we go. Okay, we're going to talk about a risk prioritization approach grounded in observed attacker behavior. We're not going to look at the theoretical. We're going to look at real stuff. Next. All right, developers, your turn. Okay, I was a little ahead of you guys. I've got the slides down below so I can see what's coming up. So developers, your turn. Let's talk about attacker behavior. Next. I don't just download and run any file. I run an antivirus scanner on it, right? That's what we were kind of talking about earlier. You download anything, you're going to run an antivirus on it, even spreadsheets, right? However, when I download open source, I freely push it straight to production. Think about your CI/CD pipeline. Think about the whole processes. Once you get it past the developer, right? The developer is always going to say, I want the latest and greatest. Yay. Guess what? I just brought down some compromised software that was only compromised for 30 minutes, but I have it on my desktop. Good. So think about cooldown periods as we talked about before. And when you're downloading open source, there are things that you can do to validate that they're good and safe. And as part of your CI/CD pipeline, make sure you're pulling from a local version of that dependency and not the external registry, because that is where I'm going to go attack. Your local, not as much. Next, please. What we used to, hold on a second. Back one. Oh, I guess I took it out. Never mind. All right, next. So we'll talk about Trojan hunting next. So let's have a little fun with Chrome extensions. I have two of these. We'll start with the first one. We'll see, we kind of get a little deep and a little long, and I'm sorry. And we'll have a little fun with it. So let's talk about Chrome extension number one. This is a chat AI stealer. So what this does is this appears as a Chrome extension for AI chat. So why would I need to go to OpenAI? Why would I need to go to Anthropic or pick your chat program of choice? I can just have a little window right there on my browser and I can ask questions and just kind of simplify my life, right? So make it simple. So this is the name of the plugin. Great. Who's going to know that one? Forget the pronunciation, but it's version 1.6.1.0. So this extension exhibits multiple malicious and deceptive behaviors that classify as a Trojan. We will see that in a moment. This extension aims to monitor, collect, store, and send exfiltration data related to user navigation, chat, conversations, not just your prompt, but your response and all your user sessions. Guess what? Included in there is your JWT tokens and all of the information that, if it's left open long enough, somebody else, not you, can start doing things themselves. And the vast majority of this actually falls within one file, blue background JS. It's a Trojan. How do we know this? Let's take a look. Next. So my question, usually in a room full of people, is what aspect of the source code that we're looking at is malicious? Can we see any aspect in here? Is it the bottom part, the middle, the top? Is there, we know that there's at least some aspect of this that's malicious. We just simply don't know, taking a look at this. And again, all you have to do for Chrome extensions, the only thing you need to do is when you bring down a Chrome extension, it's nothing more than a zip. You right click and you say unzip and you get all the files. And so you can do some fun things. So let's say you do that and you're trumping through this file. What is malicious about this file? Well, let's talk about that. Next, please. We see that this uninstall URL is malicious. What makes it malicious? Next, please. It's deceptive. It has impersonation. DeepSeek.ai Chrome extension uninstall. Well, when you uninstall this Chrome extension, what does it do? It goes in and it tells this DeepSeek.ai/Chrome extension that, guess what? You have removed that extension. Because they know who has the extension currently enabled versus not enabled, they have the ability to go, great, I'm collecting from Chris. Chris still has it active, and I have the information to be able to pull a lot more out of it. This gets far worse. The chat URL. I always ask the question in the room, is that the legitimate URL? Because we're online and I don't really have, I guess I could open up the little chat window, but I guess I'll ask you the question. Does that look malicious? Does that URL that we're looking at, deepseek.com, is that malicious? And the answer is yes, because the actual URL is not the deepseek.com. Deepseek.com is the malicious version. DeepSeek.ai, in different aspects of it, is correct. All right, next. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Yeah. So we have the update URL, right? It's www.extensions-hub.com. We all know hub.com exists, but you can actually have hyphens in your name. So the actual URL is extensions-hub.com. That's a malicious URL. And we have the update, and it's the AI sidebar. So this is a URL that used for a lot of things, and we're able to know that this is the AI sidebar. And so therefore we know what to push. All right, next, please. So what makes this a Trojan, right? So third-party tracking on every update. It calls back to a third-party partner URL. This is a tracking monetization ping that the user never consented to, right? It identifies the user and the install of the specific version. So imagine being compromised and always giving your updates. Hey, I'm compromised. I don't know it, but this is the exact version that I'm running. Well, the bad guys know what versions you're running, and by having the bad guy or the version numbers and the details of what you have, they know exactly what backdoors exist, the rats, and all the other details that play into it. Next, please. All right, so when we uninstall, we pass this information over to it, so therefore they know that you are no longer active. By having that, this API is legitimate, pointing to a third-party domain, not even the real DeepSeek domain. Guess what? We're now telling the system, guess what? We're uninstalling it. And on our way out, let's make sure that we get every aspect of the information that we can at the time of uninstall, because that way we can kind of make sure that we have what we have. So hopefully we'll get back in. Next, please. This is where it becomes a lot funner, because this next one, I'll wait for the next. You there? Probably walked away for a second. Andrew? Here it comes. All right. So what makes this a Trojan, right? So AItopia, service worker loader, JS, import chat response, JS, right? So we start looking at this and it looks.
Okay.
Go ahead. Oh, no, back.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Back one.
It's going a little slow on my end. Hit a quick lag.
Oh, no worries. We're looking at the one that says what makes this a Trojan.
Okay, give me 2 seconds.
I should have warned you that I had a lot of slides.
No, you're fine. Yeah, my restream is just going a little slow, so bear with me.
If it would make it go quicker, I can share on my side too. So just let me know.
Let's try that real fast, because right now it's not letting me get in the slide deck. So yeah, can you try that real fast and see if it'll let you take over? Oh, hold on. Yeah. I just saw it move.
Back one.
Back one? Okay, there we go.
Yeah,
sorry
we're
about
good.
that.
No worries. No worries. All right. So so we look at AItopia service, right? So what is AItopia and what's going on, right? So the file looks relatively benign, but when we start looking at what's going on, well, this is where the typical payload lives in extensions. So this service worker JS in particular can silently install, inject scripts, do like intercepting of network requests, steal your tokens and cookies, exfiltrate data, knowing exactly what's going on. And the beautiful part about this one is this is really where it becomes scary. So if you want to hit next. So this is where the pop-up hijacking infrastructure kicks in, because what's going to happen, and we'll see this actually here probably in the next slide or two, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. Usually what happens is on some of these pop-ups and some of the things, when you install the extension for the very first time, how often, how used to going in when we see a EULA, we just simply accept. Another EULA, scroll down, accept. What this Trojan does is magnificent, because what it does is it pops up a EULA. And you go in and you're just like, scroll down, accept. But what happens is when you hit accept, you're not actually accepting a EULA. What you're doing is you're actually allowing the Trojan full-blown access to your computer. Every aspect of your computer is now available to the Trojan. And so it's going to be able to see all your network traffic, what's going on and what's happening on your system. And it can now download backend things and do things on your computer without you realizing. And the Trojan just simply looks like a great chat program that you're simply going, hey, how do I turn off my PlayStation 5? You know, those kind of fun questions, right? So you're getting your answers and all of your data is being taken as well, including all your passkeys and details that are in memory. So we have a backdoor. All right, next, please. So how does this sneak by, right? The pattern of this fits the well-documented documented pattern, of fake cloned AI assistant extensions. But how did this get past all of your tools? Because we're not saying that you guys aren't running Norton or Bitdefender or any of those guys, scanning systems and tools and all that. I mean, how did this get right past all that undetected? Next, we'll talk about it. So as we're looking at this, I'll give it a second for there we go. All right, look at the spelling. This JavaScript, right? Send message. No, it's message, not message. Handle message. Well, handle is not really actually there. It's supposed to be handle. Save chat. Well, I can't even pronounce the questions that it came up with. But what you see here is a lot of the tools, depending on the tools, are looking for keywords, simple aspects of different variations. And they do try to catch these kind of things. But the problem is you look at that, and at a quick glance, you're just like, this is an international person working on the tool. They probably just misspelled it. That is done on purpose. Those typos will suggest, hey, this is rushed. It's somebody that doesn't know how to spell that, right? So the constant level of misspelling, you start looking at it and you go, okay, it happened. It's not just one area. It's all over the application. It must be that, again, it's assumed that trust that it is accurate. It's just the guy just didn't know how to spell. Next, please. This is where it becomes fun. The handle message, right? So if the message type is open pop click, guess what? We'll send the message received. Otherwise, we close the pop up click and there. So what's happening behind here? And then else, nothing. Because of the else and doing nothing, this at a quick glance looks good, looks normal, and you would just kind of think, why would they have the else? Who cares? Probably they didn't have anything in there. By having nothing in the else, there's nothing to do, and it's simple, it goes on. So this model is very suspicious. This whole CRSB agree to, the decline, the pattern basically says, this is a dialogue on agreement, fires open pop click. Remember the EULA? That's exactly how they got it. So it triggers a background script, and it goes in, and this is what we call a dark pattern, framing something as a user choice, even though they're not actually going in and saying, yeah, I would like for you to go ahead and take over my computer. That's not an option. They just simply say, hey, by accepting this, you blah, blah, blah. All right, next, please. That's extension 1. Let's talk about extension 2. We'll get most of the way through here, but I'm going to stop earlier because it really this one's extremely repetitive. And what this one is this is a ChatGPT for Chrome. Again, ChatGPT extension, Claude Sonnet, and DeepSeek AI. This one was actually interesting because it came out before the Sonnet came out. So it was slightly ahead. So people were thinking that they were accessing a beta version, an early release. So they thought they were good, right? So this Chrome extension goes in, same thing, multiple malicious and deceptive behaviors that classifies as malware. This extension masquerades as a legitimate program and hijacks ChatGPT traffic, injects aggressive advertising, and I mean aggressively. Requests excessive permissions, we'll see that. Uses deceptive marketing practices and false claims. Hey, I can give you ChatGPT instead of the $20 a month, for your developer, I can do it for $12.99. Those kind of things. It really makes it look enticing. Everybody wants to save a buck. If it's too good to be true, it usually is. And has missing core functionality, right? So the missing core functionality in this Trojan will become obvious. Next, please. There's a lot more information on this, but again, we'll just kind of hit it a little bit, right? So manifest.json, this file goes in and it just says, hey, I want access to all URLs. So I want full-blown access. So this is evidence of abuse. Now, normally what happens is you may have a junior developer or someone that's a hobby developer working on something, and they don't understand the concepts. I mean, I have written applications for Chrome, or let me back up. I have written applications for Android phones since very, very, very first version 1 from Google. And so in the early days, you simply had for the permissions like 3 or 4 options, and that's it. Today, you can get very, very finite in the options that you can say, hey, I want this for permission and that for permission. And that is part of the reason why at a certain point, I keep saying Chrome, sorry. Google, Android said, hey, we've upgraded too many times. We have too many different unique variations for security. If your software is no longer upgrading themselves and accounting for the new security mechanisms we placed in there, I'm sorry, your application's no longer going to run. They finally broke down and did that because there were a lot of malicious tools out there that simply was saying, hey, I want everything. And back in those days, everything was kind of a typical thing to do. And so now with all the finite things, Android has been smart, Apple has been smart, and same with the other vendors to say with security, we need to be very finite and really understand what permissions are out there and what's going on. So why is this malicious? Because this extension can read, modify, intercept all the data on all your websites, on all the tabs, including your banking. Every keystroke is being sent to them. So they know, oh, you've logged on to this bank. Oh, this is the username. This is the password. This is the passkey. This is all the information to get in, the tokens, every aspect of it. So they have all of that. The data theft risk is there. The legitimate need, there's absolutely no reason for it to have full-blown access and to get into everything. And you look at the policy violations, they're all over the place. Next. So then you look at the blue pop-up JS. And again, this is one of the AI topias, right? So this comes in and blue pop-up JS, lines 9 through 13, and this says ChatGPT. Here's the information, ChatGPT.com. Here's the Chrome extension, fullscreen.html. Why is this malicious? Because it creates a toggle that tells defaults to ChatGPT and heavily promotes switching to AItopia. So instead of saying ChatGPT or the applications you're running, it keeps popping up, hey, use this AItopia service, it's cheaper. Next, please. ChatGPT banner content JS. Why is this malicious? Because when we look at the URL, the type, the focus, what's happening here, when the user interacts with this extension, it opens up a pop-up windows that are redirecting to AItopia instead of ChatGPT. So even if you said, no, I don't want to upgrade, you're still actually utilizing AItopia. All the information's going there. You would have only known this if you were actually tracing everything at the network layer, what websites are being reached, what IP addresses are being reached, and all the details behind that. And again, think about when you stack on DNS poisoning and different things. With DNS poisoning, I can make it look like the right URL, even though it's not, it's going to the wrong DNS server, and that DNS is pushing you off to a malicious site. So even sometimes you're looking at it going, hey, guess what? It's the right URLs. Wrong, your DNS has been poisoned, and you're getting redirected to the wrong one. So that also plays in. Sorry, getting a little bit deep. Next. We'll hit 1 or 2 more of these and then we'll move on. The ChatGPT banner again. Why is this malicious? Because this is persistent advertising. So what's happening is it keeps popping up the same ads. It takes the ads that are coming in, replaces it with their own ads that are malicious. So it's removing the ad, injecting the malicious ad, and guess what? You're not where you should be, not what you want to do. Next. And then we'll do this one, and then we'll skip a few. to go ahead and continue on because of time. So price content script, lines 1 through 100, right? So we look at the extension, it's injecting that intrusive advertising, right? Think about it this way. I keep getting a pop-up. No, no. At some point, you're just going to say, fine, yes. Or you accidentally hit the yes. That's what's happening on these. And I will tell you, my in-laws, they click it all the time. I love them. I've done everything I can to help them, and they still click it. And it's not their fault because sometimes it comes up, it's malicious, but they don't realize what they're clicking because it looks right. And they do it in a way that really gets you. For example, that little red X that happens at the top of the screen, sometimes that is actually a click event to something malicious. And so when that pops up and they go, get rid of this click. So I've taught my in-laws, if something pops up full screen and you can't get around it, just by simply clicking on past it without clicking into that, shut off your computer, reboot it, because sometimes that is the safest way. And I have tools on there, and a lot of times you'll see those tools get uninstalled. So that was the second thing I taught them. Look at the URL, the toolbar. If they see their security tool, I don't want to say which one, but if you see that security icon missing or turned off, you know that something has happened on your machine. Give me a call, I'll help you. But what's happening here is this keeps injecting those pop-ups and those things until you finally just give it and say, stop. The younger generation are too click happy. The medium generation, my generation, we look at it with disgust, but we go ahead and just click the right things to get past it without just saying yes. And then the older generation just simply at some point says enough is enough and clicks into it. And so that just happens. All right, if we can, let's skip to the one that says, what makes this malicious? So honestly, where do we stop with this one? Because really, these are only two examples of Chrome extensions, right? But honestly, this keeps going on and on and on. And I thought I would have a little fun with this. I could do this all day. And the Star Wars, move along, move along, move along. All right, next. All right, so let's talk briefly about Light LLM. This one I absolutely love. It stole 300 billion credentials in 1 to 2 days. And really what they did was outstanding, amazing. They compromised a third-party open source tool that then went in. Light LLM is responsible for almost 95% or more interactions with an LLM, online or locally. And so Light LLM is always buried somewhere in there, which means they literally got the right keys to the castle and broke in and had fun. And the CI/CD pipeline, every little event that happened once this was in was just shifting and sending data off. And this happened during RSA, and it was outstanding because I was at my friend's booth talking to my friend Dwayne. On the wall, they had the number of leaked secrets. And we were looking at it and said, hey, in 2 hours, 3 hours, we've seen more secrets leaked in that amount of time than the entire year before. Let that sink in. And that's in hours. All right, so versions 1.8, 82.7 and 182.8. Oh, I'm sorry. 82.7 is malicious. We'll fix that for you. How about .8? Guess what? Same malicious. Privy was the payload. All right, let's roll into this. This is one of my favorites. Next. All right, so I guess I had one that was hidden. Actually, go up one. Do you see something in between? Back one. Okay, I guess I removed it. All right, no worries. Forward then, please. And one more. All right, so let's talk about what happened, right? So Team PCP was kind of griping online. It was actually kind of funny because I don't know who actually is Team PCP, but they simply were like, wow, this blew our expectations. They were so excited, but they were like, nobody's really kind of talking about us. So next, please. They're actually kind of whining in a way. So it kind of makes me think that they were younger, right? So what happened is the team was sitting there going, publicly mocked the security community, expressing sadness that no one had analyzed their build payloads. So we thought, and the company I'm at is amazing. Our Oct research is top of the class, and we have amazing things that we do. And so people were like, oh, I'm so sad nobody's analyzed it. So we went ahead and did it. We did the analysis on this. Next. So let's break down the architecture real quick. We have a dropper, unpacker, stenography, injection, C2. And because of time, next. All right, so the audio dropper. So what's happening is they created this file that was hangup.wave. But what they do, and we're going to see this actually in the image too, which is really, really, really cool, is they went in and they just replaced bits with their payload. And so what happens is enough of the file exists that your firewalls and your computer is like, guess what? It's a WAV file, but it's corrupted. But let it through. There we go. So now what happens is the output, you bring it together, and now we have MS build. Next. Part one in place. Part two. Now we've got a WAV file. So with this, our PNG. Now that we have this PNG, we take an image and the same thing. We replace the bits. And we'll see actually on the next screen which bits. But here's the cool part, and this is why I love this. Back in the early 2000s, when I was still doing a lot of development, I worked at a company and we were just nerds. I'm just going to tell you, we were nerds. We were finding ways to communicate with each other through hex, through just binary, through WAV files, and trying to identify in images, what the message was that we hid in there. And so we did a lot of really cool things trying to identify that and find that. So we had actually been doing this kind of thing, dropping payloads into images. But when you drop so much in there, and we did it in a way that you couldn't really tell the image was altered because we did it in a way that was very far apart. Here, they didn't try to hide it. It just looks like a corrupted file. Next. So what they were doing is they were going in red, byte is part of the binary, our payload, green and blue. The alpha, we discard that. We let that be. So that way we still have kind of a broken image. So that's kind of how we got right back through there. And what they did is they took that image file, they reassembled it, and then used MS Build to run it. Next, please. So they go in, they pulled the information, they pulled the code, and then they said, all right, DLL host.exe, it's a trusted Windows process. Go build this, go run it. And it all happens in memory. And you remember a lot of the earlier tools and even the tools out there today, you can still work your way around it where you can do it in memory and do it in a way that you never get seen. Next, please. All right. So now what we're doing is now we're doing dynamic API hashing. So to evade the static analysis, the injected DLL is out there. It's in memory. It's being modified real time. So that way, because we're doing dynamic, and changing the hashing and the things behind it, we're not able to identify it. So we have the kernel 32 DLL going through, we have our output. We have the read file, we have the information, we have a different hex. And so what's going on is this information, as it's being done and built and changed, it's all dynamic. So any of your tools that are out there trying to identify this kind of stuff, it's near impossible because it's just not anything that it's familiar with. And so it makes it harder. Next, please. So then what happens is we establish the command and control channel. So now we've given the ability for it to spin up. We've created a quiet channel going out, and it looks on the network like regular data. Looks like someone's just, uploading a file or streaming something across. Again, your firewalls, all your tools in between are looking at this going, I can't quite 50-50 coin flip. You know what? Enough of it's right. It's a wave. It's an image. It's this. We're good. Let it run. And that's what's happening. And unfortunately, hate to say it, I'm not trying to pick on check marks, but they were one of the companies that have been used multiple times. as that. So when you look at your firewall logs, you're hitting check marks, and that's a legitimate company. So you're thinking this is legitimate traffic. All right, next. So we're almost done with this, just because of timing, right? So, we look at it. What kind of defenses can we do? So this is really, kind of a standard RAT, right? Remote access capability to get in there. Team PCP did dynamic API hashing to get that implemented. Standard dropper, what they were doing was stenographic memory injection, taking the image, pulling the stuff out, and running it. Standard comms, your direct IP calls, right? So your Win INET backed HTTP beaconing. So it was beaconing, sending, hey, I'm here, I'm alive, to their servers. Next. I wish I had more time to really kind of dig into this. It's just a long talk. So there has to be something we can do, right? So I'll break down my thoughts really, really quickly. When you download any software, do a security scan, good, use it, bad, delete it. And when you run, play with open source, make sure you're running SCA, SAST, all those. Do a senior tech review. Go in there and say, okay, yeah, I know this is a framework that has 300 million lines of code. Say 3 months ago, 6 months ago, we agree that this is a good version. It's been out long enough. It has bugs, but who cares? Take the latest, do a code diff, and then say at the latest, we're good. And then start moving forward doing code diffs off that. That will make it go much quicker. And you can use AI for that to go in and say, hey, do a code diff, and is there anything malicious you're seeing? Do a cool off, right? So when you download anything, give it 7 to 14 days. I didn't say it when we were talking about the Chrome extensions. I'm going to say it now because I forgot it. But when you have a Chrome extension, download the Chrome extension, unzip it, upload the files, or use like something like Cursor, point it to that folder with all of the extensions, and say, why is this malicious in ChatGPT? What it's going to do is it's going to run through and it's going to say, well, he said it's malicious, so it's probably malicious, so I better figure out why this is malicious. And it will come back, if it's malicious, and tell you why it's malicious. That is a way of something you can do today for free. Now you can say, well, what about SAST and CA? Well, great. We can tell you have a SQL injection within your Chrome extension, but we can't tell you that you've created command and control backend, because that is not a security violation as far as coding goes. And so there's certain aspects. So that is your quickest way to solve that. And with that, next, threat models are, built-in conference rooms are really aged poorly, right? Attackers don't read those. What I've shown you isn't theoretical, it's actual 2 Chrome extensions and the Lite LLM that truly happened. That was really the true extension itself. And so when you ground your defensive investments in observed behavior, you stop defending against what sounds scary and start defending against what's actually happening in the wild. And that's the difference between a good security budget that looks good on paper and one that actually moves the needle. Next. Guys, I post on LinkedIn every single day. This link is not malicious. I promise you, it will take you to my LinkedIn. I post every single day about security stuff, except for, I say that this week, but this week I've been on vacation and traveling, so I've been terrible. But I want to thank Andrew. I want to thank everybody, Brianna, for letting me come in today. I hope this was a great talk. I wish I had time for Q&A. I mean, I guess we do have a minute or two for questions and answers, but
we got a few time for some quick ones. So I know one question real quick. So have you seen the videos of the guy who starts giving orders in base 64 to ChatGPT?
Yes.
Is one of the questions. So a second question I kind of have for the follow-on, was there a specific thing that got you interested in kind of this kind of research that you and some of your colleagues and even your organization kind of went into this? I mean, obviously LLMs and AI is very much in the up and coming, but yeah, even the browser extensions. I mean, so many. I'm looking at mine right now, like Wayback, my Claude, like my other small Google ones I have as well. It's just like, I think some people just take those for granted of like, oh yeah, it's the one that I quickly Googled and it was the top pick, so of course it's not malicious.
Exactly, and that's where our trust